What's the best case of instant karma you've witnessed? This asshole cut into my lane, forcing me to brake hard the other week. I honked and he turned around in his car, while still driving, to flip me off. He didn't see the car in front of him stopping at a red light, and crashed into the car in front of him. I had a lot of fun telling the police what had happened. I love car karma. One time my dad was driving through a tunnel to get back from work. He was driving slower because it was snowing and extremely icy, and while it looked dry in the tunnel, it's pretty notorious for black ice. Well, this guy behind him is honking and flashing his lights while my dad is going a completely acceptable speed for the weather. The guy gets into the left lane and floors it into the tunnel. He hit a patch of black ice and immediately spun out and totaled his car. Miraculously, no other cars were damaged, but that guy was lucky he walked away with no injuries. I was at a touristy place at the top of a big cliff. People were hanging around at the top, just enjoying the view, and this one guy was eating a sandwich while staring at his phone. After he was done, he couldn't be bothered to find a trash can, so he went to throw the sandwich wrappings off the cliff, but he got his hands confused and hurled his phone off the cliff instead. A person tried to shove past me in the hallway. Immediately after, a door opened up into the hallway and slammed him in the face. Two of my friends and I were playing Monopoly sometime around freshman year of high school. One of my friends owned all the railroads, meaning any player who landed on a railroad would pay him 200. The entire game felt like I was just moving my token from railroad to railroad, paying my friend each time, having no opportunity to buy properties, and getting super frustrated. In reality, it was probably only 2 or 3 times. On my next roll, I quickly calculate which space I was going to land on as I start to move my token, and lo and behold, I was going to land on another freaking railroad. I gracefully slide cheat past the railroad and plop my piece on the next space. Chance. Chance card reads something as follows: move token to nearest railroad. Pay owner twice the amount. I lost my shoot. Pedestrian crossing the street. Everyone stops for him, except one guy in the last lane blasts his horn and blows through the intersection, nearly running the pedestrian over. There was an unmarked police car right behind him that immediately pulled him over. Was working at a trampoline park which had 2 different dodgeball areas. One for kids 12 and under, another for 13 and up. Annoying little shoot of a kid kept trying to sneak into the 13 and up game, running around, breaking rules, and basically being a pain. We couldn't really do much about it. Eventually I just let him sneak on, and not a moment later he got smacked beautifully in the face with a rubber ball. Actually sent him flying back a couple feet. He wasn't so keen to play after that. A dirtbag snatched an elderly lady's purse and got run over by a befuddled 80-year man while fleeing. Not hit, run over by a Crown Victoria. Shit was gnarly. A few years back, I was traveling on the interstate to meet some friends who attended a different college than I did for a weekend. On the way there, I'm in the right-hand lane, minding my own business, when a car tries to cut me off. No big deal, right? Except she ended up clipping my bumper and running me off the road with her driving speeds of 85 miles per hour. Other driver keeps on going along her merry way while I'm on the shoulder attempting to contact the local police to report an accident. 5 minutes later, a state trooper pulls up behind me and asks what happened. I explain the situation, describe the other vehicle, including a partial license plate number, and he asked if my car was still drivable. After confirming that it was, he said, "Just follow me up to this next exit." I got a call about a driver who is out of gas and needs assistance. We pull up to the next exit just shy of a gas station. Sure enough, it was the girl who was the other party in my hit and run. She tried to deny anything occurred until the trooper looked at my front bumper damage and her back end damage, assessed the paint colors matched, etc. Bonus is that her plate had the partial information I had gathered as she sped away. Turns out, girl has no insurance and no license. Gets hauled off to jail on a hit and run, all because she couldn't slow her ass down and be a decent driver. A lifted pickup truck with one of those train horns was driving aggressively through morning work traffic and honking at people who got in his way. He did it to an unmarked sheriff or trooper. some kind of law enforcement, and promptly got his ass pulled over. I just walked into a crowded bar with my friend back when we were in our early 20s. Make our way around the entrance handrails and bam, this dude smashes his shoulder into mine, knocking me back. Thinking it was just an accident caused by a crowded bar, I start to recover, and this dude throws his shoulder into me again. Before I can even begin to react to the second more aggressive hit, this monstrosity of a bouncer, watching the whole things go down, picks the guy up and literally throws him out the exit doors. It all happened in a matter of 5 seconds. I don't think any other person in that bar, nor my friend, even saw it go down. My older sister and I didn't get along well growing up. One day we were both on a city bus on our way home. As we approached our stop, I got up and moved toward the door. As it opened, my sister aggressively shoved past me to get off first. The second she stepped off, she was nailed full on by seagull poop. This was over 50 years ago and it still makes me smile. During my lunch break at work a few years ago, I ran over to this convenience store that sold a few deli items and also had a lunch of the day special. That day it was spaghetti. I walked into the store and headed to the back to the coolers to grab a drink, and I start walking over to the line that was formed to grab a lunch. This older woman, who was talking to a woman not even close to the line, saw me walking and literally strong-armed me to get in front of me. She full on shoulder checked me. The cashier saw it, looked at me, and I just shook my head, as if to not call her out on it. She gets 2 orders of spaghetti. They come in a styrofoam compartment tray. She walked towards the door and someone comes in that she knows, so she's saying hi. I pay for my food and I'm out the door. As I'm walking to my truck, I hear a loud ooh off. I turn around, and this woman is planked on the ground with spaghetti and meat sauce all over her white shirt. In high school, a guy cut in front of me and said out of my way. He then proceeded to trip on the stairs. Dude I worked with pizza delivery hit my bumper and scratched in the parking lot. A customer called him out on it. He denied it and went on his delivery. On that delivery he was T-boned and his car was totaled. Had he come into the store to tell me and apologize, I would have forgiven it. Instead he had to pay $500 for a new bumper paint job and lost his car. Driving in the slow lane, guy rushes up to my bumper and starts tailgating me, honked his horn and flashed his lights. When I didn't move he went around me. Once he passed my car, so did a state trooper with his lights on. Another time, when driving to work, car starts tailgating me, but doing the speed up slow down thing. I look in my rear view mirror and see a girl in the passenger seat yell at him. The car speeds up to my bumper one more time. I look in my rear view getting ready to flip him off. Then I see the girl absolutely beach slap the guy driving. He backed off and stopped tailgating me. Worked at a convenience store several years ago. Check my other posts for a couple of funny stories. This was back before gas pumps were all either card at the pump or prepay. It was about 7 AM and the morning rush was on. A suspicious fella pulled up to our farthest away pump and positioned his car so that it was not easily visible from the building. This is a dead giveaway for someone who is going to drive off without paying. My manager and I watch this guy as we are ringing up other customers, and sure enough, when he filled up, he gets in the car and peels out, making a run for the road. He leaves a lot via a small access road that ends at a traffic intersection. Red light. He stops for the light, then decides he needs to get the hell out of Dodge and guns it again through the red light. When he does, he brakes his drive shaft. Car coasts to a stop right in the middle of the intersection. But wait. There's more. Guy walks back into the store and asks if he can use our phone because his car breaks down. My manager says sure, after you pay for the gas you just stole. Guy gets all indignant. I didn't steal no motherfucking gas, getting more and more agitated and confrontational. Just then 2 police officers walk in. Now these are 2 lady cops, both in their late 50s early 60s, that usually are stationed at the local high schools, but always stop in for a coffee and a pastry. These ladies are the nicest people you'd ever meet, always with smiles on their faces. As soon as they turn the corner after entering, they see the guy getting into it with my manager. Their demeanors changed in an instant, going from kindly grandmother to him going to kick your fucking teeth in microseconds. They manhandle this guy away from my manager, push him up against the wall, cuff him and stuff him. You know how you always think to yourself, why is there never a cop around when you need one? This time there was. Playing a beer league slow pitch softball game once. The backstop of this field was a big chain link fence half dome that extended out over home plate. The batter was mouthing off about how he was gonna hit middle on purpose, hit the ball back at our pitcher trying to injure him because he was mad that our team was steamrolling his. He proceeds to pop the first pitch straight up. The ball hits a metal pole on that half dome, comes straight back down, and cracks him in the top on his head hard. He falls to the ground, pops back up, walked back to the dugout, puts all his stuff away, and left for the parking lot. We think he went and cried in his car. Edit, a word. A week ago my husband was on a work trip and he got a free upgrade to first class. He got on the plane and sat down in 3A. A few minutes later a woman boards and tells him in a beachy tone, "Excuse me, you're in my seat." He takes out his ticket and shows it to her politely. She also has a ticket for 3A. She insists he needs to move because she paid for that seat and it's hers. A flight attendant gets involved and my husband says hell move. He was very polite, so the flight attendant has him stand aside and says hopefully there will be another first class seat. They're about to close up the plane and the flight attendant welcomes them on their flight to Charlotte and the women in 3A goes, "Oh shit, she got on the wrong flight. Idiot." My husband felt very smug watching her leave and enjoyed his 3A seat. I got punched in the face by my cousin. I was 14 at the time and he was 8. He yelled "I'm invincible" and held his fists up to assert dominance. And then he turned 180 into a wooden support post in our basement. He sat down covering his face and starting crying, and I was trying to maintain a concerned and worried look, but it was just funny as hell. Overheard an admin at work boasting that she could easily skew the numbers on the tills to make it appear as though so and so's the till was short. Now, I'm not a snitch, but I'm also not gonna let some kid get thrown under the bus cause of some beach. The next day, I went to my boss to report it, but as I walk in, I see the admin nearly in tears, claiming the boss stabbed her in the back. I don't know what she got booted for, but everyone agrees she deserved it. Admin wasn't fired, just moved to a shooty department where she's visibly stressed and drowning in the workload. A better punishment, I think. A random guy was a total douche to me at a cafe. A few days later, I interviewed him for a job. I was driving on the freeway one day and needed to get over. I checked to make sure it was clear, signaled and changed lanes. I didn't realize there was an Escalade coming up behind at over 100 miles per hour in that lane. He was going so fast that the lane looked clear. When I checked 1 second ago, the Escalade decided to teach me a lesson by acting like it wasn't going to stop and plow into me. There were now cars on both sides of me, so I cold and swerve out of the way. So the Escalade screams up until last possible second and then hits the brakes hard, so he matches my speed about a foot away from my bumper. While this is happening I'm freaking out and wobbling the car cause I think I'm going to get creamed. The cop that was 1 lane over and 2 cars back immediately flipped on his lights and pulled them over. That was quite a roller coaster ride of emotions for me. I was stuck in the left lane passing 5 semi-trucks. 1 car was riding my tail the entire time, honking, flipping me off, flashing their high beams, doing everything in their power to make me move. As soon as I move, the other car zooms right past flipping me off. 3 miles later the car was pulled over. First day of school, starting 1st grade, and I was wearing my uniform for the first time. Everything fitted me, except my shoes, that were bigger than they should. My mom was going to change them later that day, but I had to survive my first day without any incident. All was good until break, when I decided it would be an excellent idea to play soccer for a while. Of course it happened. My shoe flew all the way across the yard and fell hard on somebody's head. I was mortified, but luckily nobody else seemed to be paying much attention to it. Until a kid pointed at me and started laughing as loud as he could, screaming for everybody to see what had happened. Now people were staring, and I was about to start crying. But not even 5 seconds go by when another kid runs straight into the laughing kid, making him fall to the floor. On top of his really dark chocolate milk, he was a mess. covered from head to toe in milk. And since people were already looking in his direction, everybody laughed at him. Nobody noticed me picking my shoe and then running to the bathroom. Karma. Weird accident. I don't know. But everybody remembered Milk Boy that year. In high school had a kid punch me for like no reason. I would have punched him back, but the principal and the resource officer had literally just walked around the corner and saw it. They walk up and ask the other kids, "Did the lightning count 1 provoke Bob here?" Kids shook their heads. "Did the lightning count 1 strike Bob before just now?" Kids shook their heads. Resource officer cuffed Bob and took him to the office. He was a multiple offender and this was the last straw. He was expelled and we never saw him again. A barman smashing in the face of a well-known local scrote who was verbally abusing a blind guy and his dog in a bar. Very sweet. To be fair, the barman got in first as I think there were 1 or 2 others in the place planning the same thing. I was waiting tables at a restaurant in Texas and these 3 obnoxious women were complaining about a free appetizer they'd gotten plus the drinks, etc. Just complaining on and on. I didn't bother discounting anything else for them because their complaints weren't really founded and they were rude. They stiffed me on the tip here and, to add insult to injury, dumped what little was left in their drinks and salsa cups, chips, Quest, etc. all over the table. It was a pretty big mess and would take several towels to soak up. Nice. I saw the mess and walked away, only to see one of them come back in, rush over the table, and pick up her phone. A phone she definitely did not have in a waterproof case. She wiped it on her pants, so I know it got all wet. I didn't mind cleaning up after them so much after that. I just wish I had found the phone first. I would have made her pick it up to get it back. One time I smiled at someone walking by, then I saw them smile at somebody, who then smiled at somebody else. It was like a happy karma train. Quite recently, we got our tests back in German. One of my classmates had studied only the night before, but gotten 1,5 Classmate 2 nerdy type, always starts studying 2 weeks in advance, just stood and laughed at him until he got his test back. He got a 1/10. Has still not over it. I was driving from Chicago to Wisconsin one weekend. As soon as I got on the highway, a car to my left decides he needs my lane this instant and pushes me out of my lane onto the shoulder. He continues to zoom around and almost hit another 10 cars or so just to get right back where he started. It was rush hour. We're all slowly going along the highway when I hear this boom. Turns out the asshole car busted a tire trying to drive along the shoulder of the road to pass another car. A couple of other cars and I stop not to ask if he needs help, but to wait for the cop that was a couple miles back that saw the whole thing. We each gave our testimonies and the asshole was taken away in the cop car for reckless driving and some other charges. My friend was giving me a ride home, and while we were sitting at a red light, a motorcyclist starts zipping between the lanes to get to the front, almost causing an accident in the turning lane and almost taking off my friend's mirror. The car in front of us turned out to be an undercover cop car, and when we started driving again, we immediately saw the motorcyclist pulled over under the overpass. Edit, a comma. When I was a little kid, I went to the local hangout they specially build for kids and teenagers. I went to the scatter park. Some 12Y/0 kid came up to me and immediately started calling me names and pushing me around. I was like 7 or something. 3 older boys came running towards us and one of them slapped the bully right in his face. We don't bully small kids here. I passed a slow car on a back road who was going too slow. This lady then proceeded to ride my ass all the way to my house, cuts me off at the last second which caused me to hit her, called the cops all the while this crazy is in my face talking about beating me up. When the cop shows up he confirms there's no damage to her car. He takes our licenses, and when he hands mine back he tells me she has a warrant for her arrest. I waved at her as she got arrested lol. One time I went to a museum/showroom and me and my mother went to go get food. I went to grab and reserve a table. So I sat down while my mom went to go get some food. Then this one guy comes and starts trying to take the other chair at table. So I tell him that there's someone sitting there, but he doesn't listen and takes it away anyway. At the time I was still too little to really do anything about it. So I go and grab a chair from a unoccupied table. Then I see the guy sit down in the chair with his food. When the guy sat down, the chair broke from under him, making him fall on his back, also spilling his food over himself. A story I learned about recently. When I was still in architecture school, a professor gave his class an exercise. One student came up with a project with a lot of ramps for disabled people. The professor started laughing and asked her to remove them because no one will use them. A month after or so, he lost his leg.